Survivor Australian Outback was a very tough act to follow, which means that, for me at least, a lot of pressure was put on Survivor Africa the following season, and I guess, okay, well, I wouldn't say that Survivor Africa was a disappointment. I still enjoyed Survivor Africa, and there's a lot, I liked it more than Borneo and really any of the other seasons I had seen besides besides Australian Outback. But the thing is it did have flaws. It did have some things that I didn't like, and I'm once I finish this video, I'm probably not gonna get out another Survivor video in a while because I just started Survivor Marquesas and I'm very far from finishing it. So you're gonna have to wait for that video a little bit longer. But anyways, I'm doing the same exact thing that I did with Australian Outback, but now with Survivor Africa, and I'm pumped, and I hope you enjoy. And one more reminder that this is the season where they started doing tribe swaps. So just as an example, Silas, who will be appearing in this video, because he was in this season, was originally on the Samburu tribe, and he was switched to Berghe. But I'm just including him on Samburu because that was the original tribe he was on. Starting with Samburu tribe, and oh geez, okay, here's the thing. There were some unlikable contestants across the first two seasons. BB from Borneo was exceptionally salty, and I already talked about Jerry from the Australian Outback. She was very bossy and sort of mean. But then there's Linda. Oh, Linda. Linda immediately made a bad impression on me when she made a comment about how all of her tribe mates were speaking lightly of the genuine, real Samburu tribe their tribe was named after, and how she found that insensitive because, and I quote, "This is where it all happened," as in where humanity, where civilization was created. And immediately I thought humans came from Ethiopia, not Kenya, right? Because this season was filmed in Kenya. Well, I mean, the countries are very close to each other, and whether or not the humans did come from Kenya exactly, I don't know. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And on top of that, she just seemed kind of cold, and then she went absolutely bonkers. So somewhere between day 10 and day 12, Silas, who is sort of the alpha male of the Samburu tribe, tried to rally the troops after losing Carl, the previous tribal council. Apparently, Linda got her shorts in a bunch over Silas taking a position of leadership and began to mock him, and then proceeded to speak very weirdly and act all odd. She was voted out next and was the second Samburu boot and fourth boot overall. Dentist the Menace. I liked Carl, probably only because his name was Carl. I mean, Carl looked fine the first two episodes when Samburu was hitting a hot immunity streak, but once Berghe finally emerged victorious, somebody needed to go. I guess I thought that Frank would be the first Samburu boot because he sort of isolated himself from the rest of the group, but apparently it came down to a deadlocked vote between Carl and Lindsay Richter, the vote being split between the older castaways and the younger ones. This meant that Carl and Lindsay had to do a tiebreaker African wilderness trivia, and, well, you already know how that worked out. Carl became the first Samburu boot, and the only reason that he's at 7 is because of crazy Linda. Now, I should add, because I forgot to write this when I wrote the script, that the reason that they decided to vote out Carl first was actually because he was a dentist, and, well, I mean, I don't know why I'm doing air quotes, he was a dentist, but yeah, he was a dentist, and that he didn't need the money, which, I mean, I guess, but I don't know, it seemed kind of cold. Good old Frank definitely was the cockroach of this season. He was always talked about being voted off, but never the ultimate target. He made it to the final 7, way past the tribe merge, and the only reason he didn't go further was because Samburu was outnumbered at this point, and Berghe kept chipping him off, one by one. But here's the kicker. Once Frank was finally voted out, his remaining Samburu allies voted him out as well. Why? Because on the day of a tribal council, he bugged all of his Moto Magi teammates with his political rants about various subjects. Yeah, there's no way he could rant himself out of getting the boot after that one. If Frank was the cockroach of this season, Silas was the Icarus of this season. He set up alliances, betrayed the alliance that was in the minority of Samburu. I mean, everyone wanted to be on Silas's side. The older people, the younger people. Ultimately, he showed loyalty to the younger people, and he sailed all the way to week 2. And then the tribe swap happened. Himself, alongside Frank and Teresa, went to Buchanan, while Kelly, Lex, and Tom went to Samburu. Well, this totally screwed Silas's game. His whole alliance with Brandon, Lindsay, and Kim Powers were separated from him, and he arrived at Buchanan with nobody on his side. As a matter of fact, Zohn played a very flashy move by getting the whole Buchanan tribe to throw the immunity competition following the swap, just so that they could vote Silas out. I would say that he should be on a second chance season, but I'm pretty sure he's a little busy right now. I honestly had a lot of faith in Brandon. He seemed like one of the front runners for the Samburu tribe. I mean, he had everything there, and he could have made it further, I guess. Closer to his elimination, he was serving as a double agent between Samburu and Buchanan going into the merge. He already had some experience in betrayal when he voted out Lindsay, who was his own ally. Lex from Buchanan sort of took him under his wing in hopes that he would turn on the remaining Samburu members, but Ethan and Tom were having none of that, and Brandon was voted out soon after. Once again, someone that I think could have lasted longer, but her tribe kind of sucked right before the merge. Both tribes were tied at 4 losses at the merge, but because of the swap leading to Silas's elimination, Samburu was outnumbered 6-4 going into the merge. I think she sort of went from just a hardworking asset to a possible great player when at the aforementioned first Samburu Tribal Council, the vote was tied 4 for Carl and 4 for her. After that, a fire was lit under her, and she started to actually sort of play the game. What sucks is she was booted right before the merge, with Lex, Tom, and Kelly trying to figure out who had the most votes previously after Buchanan won another immunity competition. It was edited to look like the swappies from Buchanan thought that the one with the most votes was Brandon, but in the end they sniffed Lindsay out and she became the next casualty of this season's pagonging. And some people might say, but Buchanan didn't really pagong Samburu. Well, let's look at the statistics of the first 3 seasons. The last Kucha to get voted out in Australian Outback was at the Final Four, Elizabeth Hasselbeck. And the last pagong to get voted out in Borneo was Colleen Haskell at the Final 6. So the final Samburu, Teresa Cooper, was booted at the final 5, so only one number after the season pagonging was named after. And not to mention that the first 2 boots post-merge were Buchanan, so Buchanan had plenty of room to work with. And Powers was definitely the cutest of the season. Wait a minute, did he put her this high just because he thought she was cute? Well, of course not, but I mean, she was. She was basically this season's Elizabeth Hasselbeck. That being said, I don't think Kim played the game that much, even if she never really had that much of a chance. But at least she was a lot more likable than some of her other Samburus. The only questionable thing about her to me was, I guess she called off her wedding, which is brought up in the Family Surprise Reward Challenge, structured like the Newlyweds game. Oh yeah, you must be talking about the one where afterwards Lex took Tom on a safari only for Tom to get hungover afterwards. Yeah, I always wondered why he recovered so fast after that. I mean, Anyways, something about how Kim's mom nonchalantly talks about how she thinks Kim's proudest moment was basically dumping her fiancé seemed very odd to me. You know, the moment I saw her on my TV, I immediately thought, oh no, please don't let her be the next Tina. And for the most part, she actually was, until that whole not winning like her thing happened. I actually really did like Teresa, and I'd say with the exceptions of Brandon, Silas, and maybe Lindsay, she was the only Samburu member to actually kind of play the game. The first post-merge tribal council, when everyone voted for Clarence, she actually voted for Lex, which was a ballsy move on her part. She kept that rogue vote a secret until she was the only Samburu left, and she decided that that was a good time to come clean to Lex, but not without throwing Tom under the bus while doing so. That was the best move of any Samburu, and maybe the best move by someone on a tribe where nobody won at that point. Did it work? No, but Tom was voted out next maybe, so she might have had the last laugh. Finally, we go to Buchanan, and sorry, but this had to be number 8. She sadly had to be at number 8. I mean, she's the Deb from Australian Outback, or the Sonia from Borneo. She was obviously the weakest link, and her placement of last reflects that. She was totally exhausted and sick from the get-go, and her mystery over the can of beans with Clarence was almost trying to give Jerkygate from the Outback season a run for its money. I mean, do we still know how much Diane was involved in that situation? Do you really think she asked for some food? Comment below what you think. Going into number 7... man, Jessie was second in command of the tribe when it came to the weakest. She was also very sick, and once Buchanan lost immunity a second time, they were like, well, I guess she can go now. It's a shame because she was the first survivor contestant from Puerto Rico, and really any other place other than the U.S. for that matter, and that's really cool. There were only 2 original Buchanans booted pre-merge, so don't be shocked that I put Kelly so low. I never really liked Kelly. I mean, she was also cute and all, but I always found her to be a little bit cold. Her downfall came after Teresa did the rogue vote for Lex, triggering his inner alpha male, and the next day he started a witch hunt for the voter. Teresa, like I said, kept her vote secret very well, and Lex suspected Kelly of betraying him. Lex was running the whole operation this season, so Kelly was booted the following council. Nobody will ever again in the history of Survivor rebound like Clarence Black of the Buchanan tribe. Clarence was a good guy, but he was behind Cherry Gate and Bean Gate. Basically, on like day one, Brand opened a can of cherries and everyone took like one or two, but Clarence had to take more. How scandalous, right? Come on, guys, it's just a can of cherries. I mean, what's one more? Maybe he was hungry. After that, the entire tribe went looking for water. Clarence stayed back with a sick Denise and apparently opened a can of beans for her to eat. But he also ate some too, which torqued off the entire tribe. I guess I'd be a little torqued too if I were Denise, because she got voted off then instead of him. I mean, does that count as a blindside? But after that, people forgot about his faults because he was a huge physical asset, and they went on a huge winning streak anyways. But after the merge, they must have wanted to get him out so bad they weren't afraid of losing a number. Once I realized Clarence wasn't seen as an enemy, though, I was rooting for him. I think he was sort of robbed and maybe should be on another second chance season. So I'm going to talk about Kim Johnson from this angle. Ever heard of the purple edit? It's basically a term for when someone on Survivor is rarely shown. At the beginning of the season, I thought Kim was just a purple edit, and eventually, once the tribes merged, she got a little more screen time. The thing about Kim was that she was like a time bomb that took until the final few episodes to really take shape. She didn't win anything after the merge until literally the final 4 with the fallen teammates immunity competition. But here's something interesting. The final question, which would decide the winner of that competition, was what female castaway was the only one to not have any piercings at all? Well, Kim answered Kelly Goldsmith, which was correct. But it took a long time after the competition ended for the producers to realize that Richter also had no piercings. This mistake cost Tom Buchanan a possible $1 million, as he was voted out that night. And on top of that, Kim won the next immunity competition, which was also the final one. So she had to choose between Lex and Ethan, and either way, she wasn't going to win against either of them, so if you ask me, that fluke at the Fallen Teammates comp led to a very uneventful final 2. Was Tom the funniest castaway this season? Yes, he sure was a very notable character that I must say started out a lot more mature and authoritative, but then almost became a caricature of his humorous side. He definitely was the center of the comedic attention throughout most of the season, from him running around buck naked for the distress signal comp, to popping the massive boil on his neck, to freaking out over the mystery item at the auction. Seriously, I still have this embedded in my brain.
Now, I did you right last time.
You really did.
Okay, so we're even.
All right.
Take a look. Open that baby up.
He did me wrong. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. After I kiss you.
And then there was this little dance Ethan did.
I'll spend every penny I got, and I don't care.
By far, probably the most insane Big Tom moment was when Lex took him to that safari I mentioned as a reward, and he got totally wasted and was hung over the next morning when they had to take a hot air balloon ride back to camp. He literally drank some water and ate a handful of cookies, and he was back to normal. Like, what? Is he the original Florida man or something? Anyways, I really liked him, and I do think that he was robbed after the Fallen Teammates fluke. Ah, Lex, the Colby of this season, but probably more strategic and more deserving to win. But he didn't. Why, you might ask? Well, let's take it back to the final immunity competition. You know, the one where they all had to stand on a pole and hold on to a totem-like thing. Well, Lex had explosive diarrhea the night before and was totally drained of energy from all of that defecating he was doing. Ironically, Ethan actually fell before him, but he was right behind. And that gave all the power to Kim Johnson, who was smart enough to give Lex the boot. If Lex hadn't gotten amoebic dysentery like he was talking about earlier in the season, he may have been the 3rd winner of Survivor, but alas, the mighty had fallen. It was hard for me seeing Ethan and Kim sitting at the final 2 because I knew how badly Lex deserved to be sitting there instead of Kim. But as you may have guessed, there's still one spot left on this list. Ethan was probably my favorite contestant this season. He set a standard for how I want to react to things in life. Whenever Jeff would ask him a question at Tribal Council, it was like I was listening to a Greek philosopher. He handled almost every situation thrown at him perfectly, and that's truly a talent. Oh, the irony. How someone who's widely known as an introvert somehow was loved by everyone. And while we're just picking at all of the great things that made him a perfect winner, look at his hair.
Look at the top of his head!
Great, every time I eat rotini pasta, I'ma think of you, Ethan. And sure, Lex and Kim were just as likable as Ethan, but Kim just felt two-dimensional at times, and Lex was sort of aggressive in his gameplay, which isn't a bad thing at all. But sure, Lex owned Africa. but Ethan was a very self-sufficient lapdog who had thoughts of his own. And when Lex is out of the picture, all anyone could see was Ethan, not Kim, just Ethan as the best remaining player. And that's why he's at number 1. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. Make sure to comment and subscribe and leave a like if you wish you had hair like Ethan's.